Here's the most cogent, uh, uh, succinct way I can put it. Excellence is too damn hard for the average person.
Yeah, it is.
And we stopped teaching the discipline of if you want something, it's going to be hard. We don't even say that out loud anymore. When's the last time a fat donut eating politician said anything about if you want something excellent, it's going to be hard? They never say that, do they?
Yeah.
And they throw us
Yeah.
crumbs and they say, look how much I'm fighting for you. And the crumbs are mediocre or stale, and the average dumbbell population just accepts that as like, ah, that's great. I'm going to continue to vote for this guy. I can sit home all day and watch TV or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
So the excellence, the incentive to be excellent just isn't there anymore. Good day, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Inside Reality. It's a weekly podcast that we provide through the work of my friend over here to your left or my right, whatever, Jimmy Tran. He incepted the show. He produces the show. We appreciate your attending to it. We try to take on obvious topics that most people don't talk about, because obvious things, sometimes the most ubiquitous things, have the most impact on us, but we don't talk about it. Today on Inside Reality, we're going to talk about, from my perspective, the death of excellence, the death of meritocracy, and the embracing of, the integration of, the welcoming of mediocrity. And I think it's a grand design by institutional bureaucracy and those fat donut eating politicians who basically make fools of us every day. Jimmy Tran, thanks for producing the show.
Yeah.
Again, we hope you like, share, comment, but attend to what we're trying to accomplish here by talking about obvious things. I think it helps provoke critical thinking, and hopefully we can take some action, at least within our minds, within ourselves, to demand just better of ourselves and our surroundings.
Yeah.
Inside Reality today, the death, from my perspective, of excellence is all around us. Why are you laughing?
No. Well, good to see you again, Jeffrey. It's always fun to have these conversations. I think it's important. Right. I was just, as we were talking before the show, I mean, I know you're on this kind of death path, I guess, in terms of what you're seeing the world is heading towards, and I'm not disagreeing, okay, with you in terms of the trajectory that we're on. I guess for me, I try to frame my observation by looking at two sides, right, or two parts. I look at things from one part, which is the like what is present, and in terms of what, just being very transparent about what's there, right? And then the second part that I try to look at is, okay, where is this trajectory? Where we're headed towards, I guess.
Yeah, but your word trajectory it's a spurious word. I don't even agree with the premise of the word trajectory, because trajectory implies movement forward. I'm saying we're declining, we're degrading,
that's a trajectory,
as a society.
Yeah,
no, it's not necessarily.
A decline is a trajectory.
A trajectory implies forward heights of achievement.
No,
most people would agree that a trajectory, if you ask the average person to describe trajectory, the average person probably couldn't even tell you what trajectory means. But those that even have some semblance of education would probably infer the word trajectory does intrinsically suggest movement forward or achieving something from a lower gradation to a higher. So I don't agree with your trajectory premise to begin with. So how would you frame your position other than using the word trajectory?
I mean, I agree with you that trajectory means moving forward, okay? But it doesn't have to necessarily mean that it has always go up, okay? So that's kind of how I I mean,
Well, you just
trajectory
used
is
the word decline and trajectory in
trajectory
the
is
same context, and you
correct.
just contradicted yourself
No,
because
no,
you just said trajectory means moving forward, and you used
no,
the
no,
word
no, no.
decline, which means to move backward or to
Mo-
degrade.
moving forward meaning um, it. Okay, I okay. Maybe my command of the English language. I know is not as
Well, I'm not putting down
you
your
know.
command of the
No,
English
no, no.
language. You're a smart
That
guy.
I'm
But
just
if you're
saying.
going to articulate a point, try to do it so that it's at least congruent with
But
words that are wedded to each other that make your point one way or the other.
trajectory just means the direction that goes in front rather than I mean, you can say it's a negative trajectory, which means it goes backwards, right? So forward means forward. But to me, trajectory doesn't have to be an upward movement. It just
Anyway,
means a
let's stay on
forward.
topic.
It just
Today, we're
means a
talking
forward
about the
movement.
death of meritocracy.
Yeah.
I think that society, I think technology, I think the way we think, I think what we demand of ourselves, our children, our parents, our leaders, authority figures, we don't demand excellence overall.
Yeah,
Of course,
agree.
there are silos where people do demand that. I get that, but I'm just saying overall, we settle as a society for mediocrity and we call it good.
Yeah.
And
I
I grew up as a baby boomer right after the Great Generation where we celebrated excellence. I'll give you an example. When we go to recess, and I went to private school, so maybe it was different, I don't know. But we would have like a race at recess, and the entire class would race, RACE, race. Somebody would win, somebody would come in second, someone would come in third, someone would come last.
Yeah.
Now, I remember I was a little bit chubby, so I was sort of in the middle of the pack, even though I was athletic. But I didn't whine because I came in fourth place. The teacher would say, okay, you came in first, second, third, whatever. How about a big hand for our first three winners? We celebrated, even in that little small laboratory of a race in Albuquerque, New Mexico in eighth grade, that somebody came in first, second, and third. We celebrated that.
Yeah.
And the last place winner wasn't shamed. They're like, you know what? You need to try harder, Fred.
Yeah.
You came in last. You need to try harder. Now, did Fred go home and cry? I don't think so. Were they traumatized? I don't know. Maybe. But the framework within which those daily races took place, the last place winner wasn't ashamed. It was like, you need to try harder. We celebrated making an effort to do our best, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't do that as a society anymore.
Well,
Everybody's got to be like, if you're black or transgender, or if you're gay, if you're whatever, you've got to be in the race and you've got to come in first or second. So they manipulate the race or whatever so that a minority person, or what do they call it, an oppressed person, comes in first, second, or third.
Well, it's not even that. I don't think even that. So for me, the perspective. I mean, like you've said several things. Okay, so the effort part has been the primary focus. Okay, so that's why you get all the participation trophies.
Not only effort, but you didn't whine if you came in fourth or last.
Well,
we weren't whining about it.
Okay, well, maybe we whine internally, but not. But my point is that the focus on the effort was more than the outcome, right? So there's two parts. That's
No, that's not true at all. Simultaneously, we celebrated
I'm
the
talking about
first, second,
today.
and third place. Yeah, well, okay.
I'm talking
I
about
thought you were
today.
talking
I'm
about.
I'm not talking about what we once had. I mean, I know that once we went, you've already articulated that very clearly. I was just pointing out that the reason I think why we've seen the shift is because we now focus more on the effort rather than on the outcome.
No, today we don't focus on effort. Everybody gets a trophy today.
That is the effort focus.
No,
I mean, so
there is no effort. There is no effort in getting a trophy when there's a race and everybody who participates is equally celebrated. Where's the effort?
That is the celebrating of the effort. It's like, oh, you did good because you did your
No,
but
I think you're so wrong. I think today's framework removes the dynamic of effort. It removes that whole process, the dynamic of effort, trying harder. So maybe I don't eat pizza tomorrow and lose 1 pound, and maybe that gives me some competitive advantage to finish instead of last, second to last. We've removed effort
No, I disagree. I think, like I said,
How is there effort in just getting a participation trophy in that same race I described? And the first place winner, there is no difference between the first place winner and the last place winner.
So, okay, again,
so
maybe
the effort is removed completely. There is no celebration of first effort, of first place.
Maybe it's just a semantic of the word or the phrase or whatever. But the way that I agree with you that we have this lack of where the excellence is not, literally people that are celebrated, or that achieve, a lot, right? Whether in business or in whatever, that they are downplayed or dismissed in terms of they're
seen as oppressive.
Exactly.
Some of these fat donut eating leftist politicians, and again, I don't like the Republican Party. I'm a reluctant Republican. I can't stand either party, but I am a Republican. Because I have to, choose. Am I going to choose the guillotine or the firing squad, whatever?
No, you have a third choice.
But the point is this: the liberal media machine positions billionaires as what? Bad people.
Bad people, yeah.
Bad. Because maybe the billionaire, maybe they achieved greatness and excellence. Like what's his name? The androgynous guy with the electric cars. What's his name? He's like an androgynous.
Elon Musk.
Yeah. He seems androgynous to me. Anyway, having said that, I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to personalize it. I'm just telling you what I've observed. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But that guy's a billionaire. He invented tremendous technologies.
Yeah.
He's employed thousands and thousands of people and generated so much wealth, not just for him, but for various eco communities that he's touched.
Yeah.
Yet he's vilified as a bad person because he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of how society used to celebrate entrepreneurial success and achievement. And today, at least half the population and the liberal machine castigates that kind of entrepreneurial success and achievement.
Well, I think that to me, we've always had that. Where do you think the story of Robin Hood comes from? That is, on one level, that's Robin Hood is.
Yeah, Robin but that's different because the barons and the lords during Robin Hood they were positioned even in the story as avaricious to begin with.
No, that's what I mean.
So you can't compare the Robin Hood story to the story of successful entrepreneurs in modern America. No, that's not what I'm.
No, what I'm saying is that the Robin Hood story. See, a lot of like in today's context, Robin Hood is celebrated as this hero, and on some level he is, but not really. He's a thug in the sense of because again they frame the wealthy, the ruling party, the baron and all that, like you said, to be vilified. Okay, and of course they make the king out to be this doofus kind of character, right? That's the idea, and of course, you rob from the rich to give to the poor. That's the story, and that's what is being played out today in our modern world right now, and that's the sensibility, So this is very different, as we talked about before. In the United States, we have a very different socioeconomic framework. Okay, in the old European and most of the world, historically, you do have this kind of the class system, right? Where you have, unless you're a baron or a lord or whatever, you don't get to own property, for instance, and you don't get any of these privileges and so forth.
You're talking about the feudalistic hierarchical,
correct? Yeah,
and social strata framework.
And to me, that's kind of where we are headed in terms of our trend. The trend line and direction is where we're headed, because people have a lack of understanding that as free men and women individually in the United States, the framework here is that we get to make those determination, not government. And so the shift is happening to where
that's false.
But to me,
idealistic and false.
Yeah, but that's what's contributing to the problem in my mind. What we're dealing with.
I think today. This is Inside Reality. I'm Jeffrey Candelaria. This is Jimmy Tran. Every week we take on a topic and we try to dissect it, head on, without without how can I that without sugarcoating things? At least I don't.
And we invite you as the audience to join the conversation,
or at least think
comments and so on.
about things.
Yeah.
Think about things, right? And so, like, you're talking about this class system, and remember the communists that got elected as mayor.
Yeah.
Remember, communism removes classes. There are no classes under a communistic
that's
model.
That's the equity model. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody loses in that model. But anyway, wait for the dystopia to take place in New York. It's already dystopian. It's going to get worse. But the removal of middle class is part of this whole design to no longer celebrate excellence. Because I think, to your suggestion, I think there's some validity to what you're saying. The removal of the middle class is really what the feudalistic model in the future is looking like. You've got wealth and peasantry.
Yeah, pretty much.
And with peasantry comes ignorance, comes absence of even knowing what wealth actually looks like. Because keep in mind, during the feudalistic society, did you know that most of the population never entered into the Lord's house?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, when I say Lord, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the person that owned the land and managed the land and the food supply.
Correct.
And the crops.
Yep.
And the infrastructure, including water, housing, all that.
Yeah.
And this is partly what's happening too. My larger point is, when people have never seen excellence, they'll settle for mediocrity.
Yeah.
If you ever read George Orwell's 1984, most of the people, they lived in a dystopian society, Big Brother controlled food supply, everything I just talked about, and they had never seen even a glass of wine. There's one scene in the movie, not so much the novel, played by Richard Burton and John Hurt, where John Hurt is Winston Smith, right, who was representative of the masses that Big Brother manipulated and controlled. And Richard Burton was setting him up.
Yeah.
And so the character Winston Smith was given a glass of wine, and he never had seen or tasted that.
Yeah.
So that's part of this whole, in my view, the grand design that's going on. When people have never seen greatness or excellence or anything lofty, they settle for mediocrity.
Well, they settle for what's familiar. I mean, that's always
right.
Yeah,
that's what the fat donut-eating politicians, mostly the Senate, Congress, all of the rest of them, they create policies for the rest of us, and they don't live with those policies.
Correct. Yeah, they even have their own health care plan, for instance.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody else gets
their own pension plans.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because they're in there, so there's that club, right? And so they get to vote on what they get. Okay, that's the part that, like I said, when we received the Constitution of the United States and when we received this framework from the founding coalition, okay, the intent was the people dictate and define that, not, and that's the self-governance idea that you're supposed to set a law in place, you vote for it, and then you're supposed to live by that law, and that's why those laws are in place. And so it's like this. That was part of the checks and balance.
But remember, this whole founding father nonsense, you got to remember the population at that time was relatively small. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson, Madison would walk around parts of New England, and the people, mostly white, because remember, blacks had no votes, women had no votes, the Indians had no votes, us Hispanics, we weren't even part of that equation. Anyway, but you guys, the Asian thing, you guys weren't even around much. But the point is,
we were in the Northwest.
People knew who Thomas Jefferson was.
Yeah.
People knew who James Madison was. People actually knew who George Washington was, literally. The point I'm making is because they had that kind of almost visceral, almost, I'm not going to say quite intimate relationship, they held each other much more accountable because access to these people was much more intimate. The problem with our country today, there's so many. One, we're ignorant. One, we're lazy. One, we're fat. One, we're stupid. But we don't have access to our leaders.
Yeah.
When's the last time you talked to your senator in New Mexico? It doesn't happen. So remember,
I talked to one.
oh yeah, well,
about a
I'm
month
talking
ago.
about
Yeah, but-
actually. Oh, so the Senator Heinrich knows your name? He knows
No,
you?
no.
Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's such a disconnect that we don't hold each other accountable,
Yeah.
particularly the people holding the fat donut eating politicians accountable.
Sure.
And so they know this. That's why they can do whatever the hell they want and continue to manipulate and deceive us. Because
Well,
we're not
and-
paying attention and we're not holding them accountable.
Well, and this is also one of the reasons why the presetting of the House of Representatives to be a fixed number, because then you don't have you have a very disproportionate representation, right? I mean, so
What is it, 518, I think? Congress?
yeah,
You said yeah in a tentative way.
because I don't remember the exact number. The detail. Don't bother me with the details. But my point is that
Details are what that's what excellence is about, man.
Yeah,
is detail.
well, yes, that's part of it.
Excellence is the space between the notes in music, okay?
Okay,
That's what
that's
this is
fine.
all about.
Okay,
and when
that's fine.
people, when you utter something so ridiculous, the details don't matter, you're absolutely personifying what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to disparage you.
No.
You're a friend. I like
Well,
you.
you don't remember the number either, so why are you
but
asking me? So-
I just said I think it's 538. I think is
you
Congress.
said 518, but
Well,
so that's
look it
why.
up.
Yeah, I am. I mean, this is why we have Google and so forth. But
And I think it takes 218 votes to actually pass a bill. You can look that up
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
But these are important numbers, right?
correct.
And the fact that most people don't even know any of this stuff,
Yeah,
how can
but
we
my-
hold people accountable when we don't even have
Actually,
mechanisms?
435. That's why.
Yeah, I was
my brain-
close.
my-
And 218 to pass a bill, right?
Yeah. Well, 218. So half. of that.
218.
Yeah, because half of that. So, but my point is that the Constitution actually set very specifically the number of representative. It's like 30,000 per representative was the number. Okay,
Right.
and that's actually codified in the Constitution. That's why I'm pointing this out. However, because of the Reapportionment Act of the 1929, that changed that, and so this is why less people are being represented, because each representative have to now deal with more people because of the number. So because when you have a fixed number like that means that you have to go through this, and this is why you have all this gerrymandering that keeps happening every so often because.
So I was right, by the way. I just looked up. There are 535 voting members in Congress, which include 100 senators. So I was
you weren't right.
Correct.
You weren't. You're 538
Well, I was
is what
only
you
off
said.
by like 3. You were off by hundreds.
No. Anyway, you already know my point in this, and that is that this one action, that's not even an amendment to the Constitution, but rather it's an act that was put into place in 1913 to basically, part of it is part of the manipulation. And there's a lot of things that happened under Woodrow Wilson's
He
tenure.
was a racist. He
Yeah.
was a racist Democrat.
And he was.
Are
he
you
was-
aware of all this?
Yeah, yeah.
He was an elitist, racist guy. Look
Yeah.
up some of his ideological
it's crazy.
positions.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, he was
You
the
wanna
first
talk
progressive.
about-
He's
Yeah.
considered to be the progressive, leader. I mean, or the modern progressive considered him
Yeah.
to be their founder, if you will.
Yeah, and then
something like
FDR
that.
in another way, sort
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
with socialistic
Yeah.
mechanisms that completely invade our lives and de-incentivize wealthy people to continue to be wealthy because they're not going to continue to generate wealth because it's going back to,
Yeah.
people
Because
who
they-
are
because they want to
sucking on the
centralize-
government.
It's the centralization
GIT.
of central banking, centralization of
And
power.
the other
all
thing
that
about
stuff.
Wilson, we're going off on a tangent here, but he had a stroke and his wife basically was the president for the
Yeah.
last year of his
Yeah.
presidency.
Yeah.
He was not a good guy, I'll tell you that.
Well,
But
he
getting
did.
back
But he
getting
did
back to
say
the point
something.
today, this is Inside Reality. I'm Jeffrey Candelaria, Jimmy Tran. I'm arguing, I think you are too, in your way, the death of excellence, the
Yeah.
death of meritocracy.
Yeah.
And here's why, and here's the most cogent, uh, succinct way I can put it. Excellence is too damn hard for the average person.
Yeah. It is.
And we stopped teaching the discipline of if you want something, it's going to be hard. We don't even say that out loud anymore. When's the last time a fat donut eating politician said anything about if you want something excellent, it's going to be hard? They never say that, do they?
Yeah. No, they don't. And that's the yeah. I don't even know how to describe what.
And they throw us crumbs and they say, look how much I'm fighting for you. And the crumbs are mediocre or stale, and the average dumbbell population just accepts that as like, ah, that's great. I'm going to continue to vote for this guy. I can sit home all day and watch TV or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
So the excellence, the incentive to be excellent just isn't there anymore.
Well, I think it's there. It's just not promoted.
It's not a cultural value.
Yeah, it's not promoted, and
It's you're into this whole nonsense about American values, which I don't think exist at all. But in your framework of American values, in that framework, do we teach collectively? Do we promulgate the tenet of achievement and working hard? And when you work hard,
we did.
you're going to
once.
learn, you're going to be wiser,
Yeah.
and there's a great opportunity for you to maybe even touch greatness. Do we teach that anymore as a value?
Not,
Hell no.
No,
No
not
way.
anymore. We once
No.
did. I mean, that was
Absolutely
once,
we did.
That
I
was.
grew up with it.
Yeah,
I grew up with that.
yeah,
And certainly the great generation lived it, defeating the Nazis and the Italian, what was his name? The fat guy that got hung by his Mussolini.
yeah. There's this story.
He was actually the first fascist of any consequence, by
Sure.
the way.
Yeah.
Look up fascism, and it was Mussolini.
Yeah.
And then Hitler, and of course the Japanese, because they had the Axis powers.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Here's what's really interesting too is like, so there's a story. I think it was Ronald Reagan that told it. And I'll have to find the video. It's actually pretty neat. I don't know if he's the only one, but I've heard it in another context too. It's like there was a young man and an old guy and a young guy having this conversation, and he's like saying how all these things, there was no airplanes, there's all this stuff that and you familiar with the story?
no.
Okay.
I wasn't a Reagan guy. I'm sorry.
No. I just saw it.
Guy was annoying to me. Although
actually,
he was, he did a lot. He did a lot to promote economic development. So
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But
So the young man was talking to his grandfather, the older guy, and saying, "Hey, there's all these things that we have, and it was just complaining." And the old man turns to him and says, "Oh well, I mean, I didn't grow up with, airplane. I didn't grow up with, internet, car, all these things, right?" He just named off all this stuff, and he says, "Okay." And so the idea was that, well, I didn't grow up with it, so we created it, right? And so that's the idea of the excellence there. I mean, whereas, so what do you do? What are you doing, you young man? You all you've got is to complain about all these things that you don't have, but you haven't done anything to create.
well, that's what's so striking about when I just read the newspaper or watch television news rather, whether it's Fox or any of that. You just see so much whining, Oh, we're black and we're oppressed, or we're Hispanic and we're oppressed. Oh, I came here illegally and you're trying to profile me, and like, I mean, I just like, okay, fine. I don't like that either, perhaps, but what are you going to do with your life? You know, when's the last time somebody said to one of these oppressed people, "What are you going to do with your life after you stop whining?" We get the oppression.
Yeah.
We get that things aren't fair. We get that.
Yeah.
But you still have to breathe, drink water, defecate, and do whatever the hell else you're going to do
Yeah.
biologically to live. But what are you going to do to contribute to your ecosystem?
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
Yeah.
After the whining, and we get it. There's a lot of oppression.
Yeah,
There's a
we all
lot of
have to do it.
racism.
Yeah.
There's a lot of even economic, what I would call economic oppression. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we live in a white dominant society, no question.
Yeah.
But after all that, what are you going to do with your life other than protest? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the protesting is important, and bringing these issues to not just conversation, but trying to rectify some of these issues, absolutely important. Like Muhammad Ali, he's a great example, okay? He was one of my sports heroes because not only did he, in a sense, bring all these issues to bear, but he did something about it. He was the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, which he did. He contributed wealth, created jobs, and he stood with conviction against the Vietnam War, which cost him 3 years of the apex of his career.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was bringing to attention the oppression. So there's a great example of he just didn't protest, which he did.
Yeah.
He earned a living. He did something.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the equation that isn't happening, especially with the liberal, all these woke populations. They whine, they complain, all that. They were half of what Muhammad Ali did, but they didn't do the other half. Pursue a career, go on college campuses, talk about it, and be convicted and sacrifice his own career for his stance on, racism and oppression and economic, inequality and all that. I respect him almost more than any other major figure because he stood for what he said, but at the same time, he still created wealth.
Yeah.
He did something with his life.
Yeah. I agree that, and not waiting for the system to,
Exactly.
That,
Absolutely.
and
He
that's
became part of a system.
correct.
He created a system. He was the most entertaining boxer ever. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson
Well, yeah.
came a little bit close, but he was a flash in the pan.
Yeah. Well, he had personality. He was very articulate, and and he was well. I mean, he was a deep thinker, and so forth. So
Well, and he was also the paragon of his own craft.
yeah.
He's the greatest heavyweight of all time.
Yeah.
I would argue even the greatest boxer of all time
Well, you-
overall.
that's what he says to the world, right? He's the greatest. So
Sometimes you can't argue with the David. It's the greatest piece of artwork I think ever created by mankind, Michelangelo.
yeah.
And anyway, so we've got about 10 minutes here. We've been talking about today, Inside Reality, the death of meritocracy. And again, I think it's dying because it's just too damn hard. And the fat donut eating politicians and the people that have power don't want to tell you, we the people, it's too damn hard because that's too difficult a message for them to be accountable to.
Well, here's the other. It raises
Right?
the question. Yeah. What do we do about it, though? I mean, I know
Well, we talk about it on shows like this.
We got to deal with it by first acknowledging and admitting that that is an issue, right? But how do we move past that? I mean, certainly what you mentioned right now about with Muhammad Ali is that we got to take some actions in that direction. Create something, right? Because we're now in a world and a time when
I think the answer is simple. And if I were running for office, I probably wouldn't get elected, but I'd say my mantra is, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
And I would not do any of this nonsense. Oh, I'm going to fight for my constituency. No, I'm going to do what I can to generate policies that generate economic development. I'm going to try to fight oppression where I can. That's all I'm going to do. But we the people that are part of my constituency, you got to get up your ass and do something too. When's the last time you heard a politician on the Republican side or the other side say that?
Yeah.
You've got to do something too.
Well, they do.
constituents.
They say to go out and vote. I mean, but then,
No, I'm not talking about that
yeah, yeah,
because the voting is just to give that person power.
yeah,
That's a self-serving, request of action. I'm talking about when's the last time a fat donut-eating politician, Republican or otherwise, said, "I'm going to do what I do to represent my constituents, but we the people, you guys got to get off your ass and do something too.
yeah.
What are you going to do?"
Well, the old John F. Kennedy statement, right? Ask not what you can do for your country, or ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country, right? I mean,
Yeah, but he was
that's,
talking to basically the greatest generation
yeah,
because that they were home from what 10 years removed from the
yeah,
war or 15 years,
yeah,
and then the beginning of the baby boomer generations,
yeah,
the babies.
yeah,
So he was talking to those two populations, and we assimilated into that.
yeah,
Most of us did.
yeah,
I did.
yeah. And
You
I mean,
know,
certainly, I mean, if you look at all the advances, certainly most of the advances that we've seen in human history really came through that corridor.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
and everything else that we have today is, that we say are advances were built off of what that was done,
No, no
So,
question.
so whether
And
it's
and we
space
didn't.
travel,
I
whether
just remember, I grew up. I'm Hispanic in Albuquerque, New Mexico, blighted area. I was oppressed. I was profiled.
yeah,
I had a nice car in a
that's,
shitty part of town. I'd get stopped all the time.
yeah,
And I remember one time I was about 20 years old, and I told the cop, he was a white guy on South Broadway, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I said, "Are you just stopping me or detaining me just because I'm Hispanic in a nice car?" He didn't have an answer.
yeah,
That was profiling.
yeah,
So I tried to articulate being profiled and oppressed, but I didn't whine about it. You know what I did the next day? I went to work.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the difference. And I'm not saying it's about me. I'm just saying that was the mindset that we had. You
sure,
called out the hypocrisy, you called out the oppression, you called out the whatever, but you did something the next day to contribute to your own well-being, your own self-aggrandizement, your own trajectory of progress, and to the community. And that's what's missing throughout various populations in our country today. And a lot of it is a function of our leaders. They don't teach us to challenge ourselves and to achieve. They don't say that.
yeah.
I mean,
I
look
mean,
look at Pritzker. The guy's a fat slob. No offense. You can hate me for that. I don't care. How can he represent me when he doesn't even take care of his own body? I know that sounds awful, but come on. I'd rather have that RFK guy, even though he's a little off. The guy's fit, and he's the secretary of
health,
basically fitness,
yeah,
health, right?
yeah,
He
exactly,
looks like a pretty healthy guy, and he's like 74 years old or
yeah,
whatever the hell.
yeah,
That's all we're at. That's all I'm asking for is my representative should personify what they say they represent.
yeah. Well,
That's
actually,
all.
actually, on the corollary to that, I think is more evident, right? Where we're seeing a reflection of us through them. Okay, so you can make the case that what we have today in society is really what we're seeing. If we look, does that make sense? So when you were talking
No,
about the unhealthy and the corrupt or whatever is what we're seeing, because remember these are representatives, right? So that means that these are people that were voted into that position. So those are the people that as a whole, as a collective of the citizenry, right, have chosen these people to represent them. And of course, you're correct that of course the policy, the principle, all that is well on one level, but then on the other side is you know are they corrupt? Are they healthy? And all those other non-evident pieces are also part of that vote. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
well, I think their messages are absolutely corrupt are inherently, intrinsically corrupt in and of itself because they're not talking about challenging their own populations to get off their
Yeah,
butt and do a little bit better to ameliorate their own lives.
yeah. Well, some would argue that, hey, we're trying to do it, but I've got 2 jobs, 3 jobs, trying to just make ends meet. How would I be able to participate to do that?
Well, then I would argue to that person, how many kids do you have? And most of those people that are saying that have 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 kids. And my next question, if I were the governor, guess what my next question would be?
What would be the next?
Why did you have so many damn kids? Why did you think about having a 4th kid when you couldn't afford? How come no one ever says that out loud?
Because it's profitable. Because remember, I get paid. I get.
But nobody says that out loud. That part of it either. You're incentivized by mostly liberal policymaking to have another child so you can get more food stamps. That's what you're kind of saying.
That's part of it, yeah. Because you get the assistance.
But when is the last time you had a conversation like this with a political leader and a member of their constituency, like what we're saying this, like what we're talking about now? It does not happen.
Yeah.
Obvious things. That's why this show is called Inside Reality. We talk about obvious things.
Yeah.
So the governor's saying, oh, we're going to give you more food stamps. But the governor should also say, but why did you have so many kids to give you some more food stamps? Because you're causing yourself economic stress. And the person over here says, well, if I have another kid, I get more food stamps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real conversation.
Yeah. But
that's a real conversation. It doesn't happen.
Well, here's where it gets interesting, right? Because the people that are asking those questions are the more educated people, the smarter people, and the ones that are not, again, remember, having sexual relation and having children is a very visceral, very kind of, very base level operation, right? So this is one of the other thing that what we're seeing in the trends as well, where the people that have more children are less capable of actually caring for them I'm not, again, that's not true all the way. I mean, Elon Musk, he's got plenty of wealth and he's got 11 kids, I think, but so he's doing his best to try to, compensate, for that, but there are many others. There's this great video, I'm trying to find it, where there's this couple, they're super educated and smart, and they're trying to negotiate when and how and all this stuff about having children, and then they never end up having children. And then there's other couple that are kind of like these throwback in the woods kind of people, right? And they're having more and more children over time, and children and then grandchildren and so forth and so on, and that's really part of the dynamics of it, in a way.
All I'm saying is, as we conclude, when's the last time a fat donut eating politician on either side said, sex is easy, but there's a economic responsibility and a parental responsibility after the 3 seconds of feeling good if you're a male happens. Okay. Yeah. So when's the last time you heard a fat politician say that? Sex is easy, but there's a consequence.
Yeah.
And frankly, you are going to live with that consequence.
Well,
because I'm over here with my limousine in the state capitol, getting a free Starbucks by the way, I haven't driven a car in 5 years because I'm limoed everywhere I go, and I live in a mansion. So the fact is, that's why this is Inside Reality. And this is the fictitious fat politician saying, you have to live with your life.
Yeah.
When's the last time you heard that? Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen, yeah.
All right, Inside Reality, Jeffrey Candelaria.
Jimmy Tran. Please like us, follow us, subscribe so that
or
you
at
get
least
notified.
Listen to us. At least you don't have to like us, but
okay, fine.
That's going a little too far.
But we'll appreciate the thumbs up anyway, right? Even if you don't agree with us.
Yeah.
You can. You don't have to. The thumbs up has nothing to do with, in my opinion, has to do with whether you like what we're saying or agree with what we're saying. You're just saying, okay, I appreciate it. You're saying it. Let's have a conversation. All right.
Take care. The death of meritocracy is upon us.